ഹലോ, ഞാൻ റിജോസിൻ്റെ യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനലിലേക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും സ്വാഗതം. അപ്പം നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് ദ പേഴ്സൺ സീസിറ്റി മാനുവൽ 2024 എന്ന ഈ ബുക്കിനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള വീഡിയോസ്. നമ്മൾ ഫസ്റ്റ് തന്നെ പറയുന്നത് ഈ ബുക്കിലെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യം സിലബസ്, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മുടെ വീഡിയോട്ട് റിലേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം ആഡ് ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ ബോക്സിൽ കൊടുക്കുക. അപ്പോൾ ദയവായി ചെക്ക് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കണം. ഈ വീഡിയോയിൽ നമ്മൾ ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുന്നത് CCT പേപ്പർ 1 ജനറൽ സ്റ്റഡീസിൽ ചാപ്റ്റർ 1 ഏൻഷ്യൻ്റ് ഹിസ്റ്ററി ആൻഡ് കൾച്ചറിലെ ഏൻഷ്യൻ്റ് ഹിസ്റ്ററി. അല്ല, കഴിഞ്ഞ വീഡിയോയിൽ നമ്മൾ കുറേ ടോപ്പിക്സ് പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു. കഴിഞ്ഞ വീഡിയോസൊക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ വാച്ച് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടാവുമെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. ഈ വീഡിയോയിൽ നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നത് സൈവിസം ആൻഡ് സേവ് കൾട്സ് ആണ് പറയുന്നത്. സൈവിസം ആൻഡ് സേവ് കൾട്സ്. സൈവിസം ആൻഡ് സേവ് കൾട്സ്. സൈവിസം ആൻഡ് സേവ് കൾട്സ്. Saivism had its origin in the very ancient past. In Vedic religion, Rudra is considered to be the Vedic counterpart of Pashupati Mahadeva. The grammarians of the post-Vedic period give us an idea about the growth of Saivism as a religious movement. Saivism had its origin in the very ancient past. In Vedic religion, Rudra is considered to be the Vedic counterpart of Pashupati Mahadeva. The grammarians of the post-Vedic period give us an idea about the growth of Saivism as a religious movement. Panini, for instance, referred to a group of Shiva worshippers of his times. Patanjali also describes a group of Shiva worshippers as Shiva Bhagavadas in his Mahabhasya, 2nd century BC. Patanjali refers indirectly and briefly to the forceful and outlandish ritualism of these worshippers of Shiva. This reminds us of the extreme religious practices of the Pashupadas described in the Pashupada Sutras. This reminds us of the extreme religious practices of the Pashupadas described in the Pashupada Sutras. Shiva is universally worshipped in the form of the phallus linga, the source of manifestation and life, which inevitably contains the seed of disintegration and death. The female generative organ, yoni, represents Shiva's Shakti, the personification of his cosmic energy. When represented together, the linga and yoni signify the two great generative principles of the universe. Some of the Puranas identify the whole of creation with Shiva through the doctrine of his 5 faces: Isana, Tatpurusha, Aghora, Vamadeva and Sadyojada. Isana, Tatpurusha, Aghora, Vamadeva and Sadyojada. Shiva's 5 faces are the personified as the rulers of the 5 directions, the 4 points of the compasses and the zenith, making up the totality of spatial extension. Some of the Puranas identify the whole of creation with Shiva through the doctrine of his 5 faces: Isana, Tatpurusha, Aghora, Vamadeva and Sadyojada. Shiva's 5 faces are personified as the rulers of the 5 directions, the 4 points of the compasses and the zenith, making up the totality of spatial extension. Saivism flourished under the Gupta dynasty through the dominant sect was Vaishnavism. In South India, the Pallava kingdom Mahendravarman I was the first Jaina and later turned a Saiva. Royal patronage enhanced the Popularity of Saivism. As did the mystical and devotional poems composed by the 63 Saiva Nayanars. Saivism in South India, like Vaishnavism, flourished in the beginning through the activities of Saiva saints, popularly called the Nayanars. Their poetry in Tamil was called Tivaram, also known as Dravida Veda. Their property in Tamil was called Tivaram, also known as Dravida Veda. There are 63 Nayanars, the most important among them being Tirujanana, Sambandar and Tirunavukarasu, popularly known as Appar. There are 63 Nayanars, the most important among them being Tirujanana, Sambandar and Tirunavukarasu, popularly known as Appar. Saivism in South India, like Vaishnavism, flourished in the beginning through the activities of Saiva saints, popularly called the Nayanars. Their poetry in Tamil was called Tivaram, also known as Dravida Veda. There are 63 Nayanars, the most important among them being Tirujanana, Sambandar and Tirunavukarasu, popularly known as Appar. There are 63 Nayanars, the most important among them being Tirujanana, Sambandar and Tirunavukarasu, popularly known as Appar. The emotional Saivism preached by the Nayanars was supplemented on the doctrinal basis by a large number of Saiva intellectuals, Acarias, who were associated with several forms of Saiva movements like Agamanta, Suddha and Virasaiva, who were associated with several forms of Saiva movements like Agamanta, Suddha and Virasaiva. The Agamantas based their tenates. The Agamantas based their tenates mainly on the 28 Agamas, which explain various aspects of Shiva, Ahora, Shivakarya was one of their best exponents. The Suddha Saivas upheld Ramanuja's teachings and Srikanta Shivacharya was their great expounder. The Virasaivas or Lingayates, were led by Basava, a minister of Chalukya king Vijala Raya of the 12th century AD. A minister of Chalukya king Vijala Raya of the 12th century AD. Basava used his political power and position in furthering the causes of this movement, which was both a social and religious reform movement. These people were also influenced by Ramanuja's teachings. Basava used his political power and position in furthering the causes of this movement, which was both a social and religious reform movement. These people were also influenced by Ramanuja's teachings. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞ മനസ്സിലാന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. അടുത്തത് Pashupata is probably the earliest known Saiva cult. The cult nourished in Orissa and in Western India. from the 7th to the 11th centuries. The founder of the Pachupada cult was Laculisa, said to be an incarnation of Shiva. The founder of Pachupada cult was Laculisa, said to be an incarnation of Shiva. Laculisa's special emblem was a club, Lacuta, which sometimes symbolizes the phallus. Pachupada is probably the earliest known Saiva cult. The cult nourished in Orissa and in western India from the 7th to the 11th centuries. The founder of the Pachupada cult was Laculisa. Laculisa, said to be an incarnation of Shiva. Laculisa's special emblem was a club, Lacuta, which sometimes symbolizes the phallus. He is usually depicted naked and idiophallic. The later state does not signify sexual excitement, but sexual restraint by means of yogic techniques. The cult's main text is the Pachupada Sutra attributed to Laculisa. It is primarily concerned with ritual and discipline, according to a 13th century inscription. Laculisa had 4 chief disciplines who founded 4 sub-sects. A number of Pachupada temples were established in northern India from about the 6th century onwards. But by 11th century, the movement was in decline. The Pachupada doctrine was dualistic in nature. Pashu, the individual soul, was externally existing with the Pati, the supreme soul, and the attainment of Dukhanta, end of misery, was through the performance of yoga and vidhi. Means this vidhi consisted of various senseless and unsocial acts or extreme acts. The Kapaligas and the Kalamugas were undoubtedly offshoots of the Pachupada sect, and there is enough epigraphic evidence to show that these were already flourishing in the Gupta period. Other extreme sect of Saivism are the Aghoris, successors of Kabaligas, and the Goragnadis. Other extreme sects of Saivism are the Aghoris, successors of Kapaligas, and the Goragnadis. In contrast to the above mentioned extreme forms, some moderate forms of Saivism also appeared in northern and central India in the early medieval period. In Kashmir, 2 moderate schools of Saivism were founded. Vasgupta founded the Pratyabhijana school. Vasugupta founded by Pratyabhijana school, and his pupils Kalata and Somananda. Kalata and Somananda founded the Shastra school. Kalata and Somananda founded the Spandastra school. Spandastra school. All these teachings were systematized by Abhinava. All these teachings were systematized by Abhinava Gupta, who founded a new monastic system called the Trikka. Another moderate Saiva sect known as Maivas. Maivas flourished at the same time in central India and a little later in some parts of the Deccan. Epigraphic evidence from central India shows that many of the Metamoira Acharyas were precipitors of the Kalachuri KD kings. In contrast to the above-mentioned extreme forms, some moderate forms of Saivism also appeared in northern and central India in the early medieval period. In Kashmir, two moderate schools of Saivism were founded. Vasugupta founded the Pratyabhijana school. Vasugupta founded the Pratyabhijana school and his two pupils, Kalata and Somananda founded the Spandastra school. Spandastra school. All these teachings were systematized by Abhinava Gupta, who founded a new monastic system called the Trikka. Another moderate Saiva sect known as Maivas flourished at the same time in central India and a little later in some of the Deccan. Epigraphic evidence from central India shows that many of the Metamayura Acharyas were precipitors of the Kalachuri KD kings. Epigraphic evidence from central India shows that many of the Metamayura Acharyas were precipitors of the Kalachuri KD kings. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞത് സൈവിസം ആൻഡ് സൈവ് കട്സ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇതിൽ സ്പെല്ലിംഗ് മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് വരാൻ സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അഡ്വാൻസ്ഡ് ക്ഷമ ചോദിക്കണം, ദയവ് ഇതൊന്ന് മനസ്സിലാക്കാം. ഇനി നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത ടോപ്പിക് വരുന്നത് കബാലികാസ് ആൻഡ് കലമുഗാസ്. ഇതിനു മുന്നേ നമുക്ക് കനിഷ്കാസ് നാഷണാലിറ്റി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ടോപ്പിക് ഉണ്ട്, അത് നോക്കാം. അതിന് ശേഷം കബാലികാസ് ആൻഡ് കലാമുഗാസ് നോക്കാം. കനിഷ്കാസ് നാഷണാലിറ്റി. There are different theories regarding Kanishka's nationality. It is widely expected that he is of Yuki origin. There are different theories regarding Kanishka's nationality. It is widely expected that he is of Yuki origin. It is said that during the 2nd century BC, the Yuki, a Mongoloid nomadic tribe of Central Asia. There are different theories regarding Kanishka's nationality. It is widely expected that he is of Yuki origin. It is said that during the 2nd century BC, the Yuki, a Mongoloid nomadic tribe of Central Asia. A Mongoloid nomadic tribe of Central Asia was forced out of their pasture lands by their more powerful neighbors, the Huangnu. Being thus driven out, they migrated westwards and, in the course of their migration, conquered the Vusan tribe and settled down in the basin of the river. Here they were divided into two branches, of which the minor branch Siayuki defected southwards and settled down along the Tibetan border, while the major branch Tayuki proceeded forwards, defeated the Chagas, and settled down in the conquered territory. From there, they were again expelled by the son of the dead Wusun chieftain. From there, they were again expelled by the son of the head Wusun chieftain. Resuming their march, they finally occupied Bactria and Sogdiana, and by about the 1st century BC gave up their nomadic habits and adopted a more settled life. Here they were divided into 5 groups, of whom the Kushanas, Kyushang overpowered the rest and united the whole tribe under Cadphases. One Kujula Cadphases, who captured some regions of northwest India. He was succeeded by his son Cadphases, Vima Cadphases, who annexed their Indian territory. Kanishka, whose connection with Cadphases II is not known, is said to have succeeded him. Here they were divided into 5 groups, of whom the Kushanas, Kyushang, overpowered the rest and united the whole tribe under Cadphases I. Kujula Cadphases, who captured some regions of northwest India. He was succeeded by his son Cadphases II. Vima Cadphases, who annexed further Indian territory. Kanishka, whose connection with the Cadphases II is not known, is said to have succeeded him. Kanishka's nationality നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞത്. നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത ടോപ്പിക് നോക്കാം. Kabaligas and Kalamugas. There are 2 extreme tantric cults which flourished from about the 10th to 13th century, mainly in Karnataka. They were probably offshoots of the Pashubada movement. They reduced the diversity of creation into 2 elements, the Lord and Creator, and the creation that emanated from him. According to a few inscriptions and literary references, the Kapaligas originated in about the 6th century in the Deccan or South India. By the 8th century, they began to spread northwards. But by the 14th century, they had almost died out, their decline being hastened by the rise of the popular Ligyat movement. Or perhaps they merged with other Saivite tantric orders such as the Kanfatas and the Aghoris. According to a few inscriptions and Literary references. The Kapaligas originated in about the 6th century in the Deccan or South India. By the 8th century, they began to spread northwards. But by the 14th century, they had almost died out. The decline being hastened by the rise of the popular Ligayat movement, or perhaps they merged with other Saivite tantric orders such as the Kanfatas and the Aghoris. The Kapaligas. The Kapaligas skull bearers were adherents of an ancient ascetic order centered on the worship of the terrifying aspects of Shiva, namely Mahagala, Kabalabrit, he who carried a skull, and Bhairava. They were preoccupied with magical practices and attaining the perfections, siddhis. The Kapaligas skull bearers were adherents of an ancient ascetic order centered on the worship of the terrifying aspects of Shiva, namely Mahagala, Kabalabrit. He also carries a skull, and Bhairava. They were preoccupied with magical practices and attaining the perfections, siddhis. All social and religious conventions were deliberately flouted. They ate meat, drank intoxicants. They ate meat, drank intoxicants, and practiced ritual sexual union as a means of achieving consubstantiality with Shiva. The devotees ate from bowls fashioned from human skull and worshipped Shiva. They would carry a triple staff pot and a small staff with a skull-shaped top. All social and religious conventions were deliberately flouted. They ate meat, drank intoxicants, and practiced ritual sexual union as a means of achieving consubstantiality with Shiva. The devotees ate from bowls fashioned from human skull and worshipped Shiva. They would carry a triple staff pot and a small staff with a skull-shaped top. The Kalamogas flourished in the Karnataka area from about the 11th to 13th century. They drank from cups fashioned from human skull as a reminder of man's ephemeral nature, and smeared their bodies with the ashes of cremated corpse. The Kalamogas flourished in the Karnataka area from about the 11th to 13th century. They drank from cups fashioned from human skull as a reminder of man's ephemeral nature, and smeared their bodies with the ashes of cremated corpses. ഇനി നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത ടോപ്പിക്ക് നോക്കാം. അഘോരീസ്. അടുത്തത് അഘോരീസ്. This was a tantric movement now extinct and said to have consisted of two branches, the pure Shuddha and the dirty Malin, Aghoris were the successors of the Kabbaliga cult. Neither religious or caste distinctions were allowed, nor was image worship, and all adherents required to be celebrate cannibalism, animal sacrifices, and other cruel rites were practiced. All kinds of refuse were eaten as excrement is seen to fertilize the soil. So eating it was thought to fertilize the mind and render it capable of every kind of meditation. The Aghoris led the wandering life of vagabonds. Each guru was accompanied by a dog, as was Shiva in his Bhairava aspect. Aghoris. This was a tantric movement, now extinct and said to have consisted of two branches, the pure, Shuddha, and the dirty, Malin. Aghoris were the successors of the Kabbaliga cult. Neither religious or caste distinctions were allowed, nor was image worship, and all adherents required to be celibate. Cannibalism, animal sacrifices, and other cruel rites were practiced. All kinds of refuse were eaten as excrement is seen to fertilize the soil. So eating it was thought to fertilize the mind and render it capable of every kind of meditation. The Aghoris led the wandering life of vagabonds. Each guru was accompanied by a dog, as was Shiva in his Bhairava aspect. അടുത്തത് Virasaivas. Veersaiva is a South Indian devotional cult, also called the Eligayat cult. It was based on non-dualism. Vishishta Daivada. Baisava was the founder, or more probably the systematizer of the movement. At 16, he left home and went to the pilgrimage town of Sangama, where he worked to reform Saivism, to overcome caste distinctions, and to fight a ban on the remarriage of widows. Later, he became a minister of the usurper king Vijala, who reigned at Kalyani. While serving the king, he converted a number of Jainas to his cult, but his unorthodox views caused tension between the king and his subjects, and he left the king's service. After Basava's death in AD 1168, the members of his sect were persecuted, but today the movement has many followers, mostly in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Virasaivas. Veersaiva is a South Indian devotional cult, also called the Ligayat cult. It was based on non-dualism. Vishishta Deivada. Baisava was the founder, or more probably the systematizer of the movement. At 16, he left home and went to the pilgrimage town of Sangama, where he worked to reform Saivism, to overcome caste distinctions, and to fight a ban on the remarriage of widows. Later, he became a minister of the usurper king Vijala, who reigned at Kalyani. While serving the king, he converted a number of Jainas to his cult, but his unorthodox views caused tension between the king and his subjects, and he left the king's service. After Basava's death in AD 1168, the members of his sect were persecuted, but today the movement has many followers, mostly in Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. വീരാശൈവാസ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞ മനസ്സിലായെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. ഇനി പറയുന്നത് ടാൻട്രിസം. This is a form of sacramental ritualism having a number of esoteric and magical aspects which employs mantras, yantras and yogic techniques. Tantric elements also feature in Jainism, Mahayana Buddhism, Saivism, Vaishnavism and Shaktism in the form of Durga. This is a form of sacramental ritualism having a number of historic and magical aspects which employs mantras, yantras and yogic techniques. Tantric elements also feature in Jainism, Mahayana Buddhism, Saivism, Vaishnavism and Shaktism in the form of Durga. The name Tantrism is derived from the sacred texts called Tantras. The earliest works of this vast literature were written during the Gupta period. Two Tantrists, the Tantras are as authoritative as the Vedas and hence are known as the fifth Veda. Yantras, geometric symbolic patterns have great spiritual significance. They are equivalent to the concrete personal expression of the unapproachable divine. Yantras operate in the visible sphere as mantras do in the audible. By means of yantras, devotees are able to participate ritually in the powers of the universe. The best known is the Sri Yantra, consisting of a number of interlocking triangles with a central point symbolizing the eternal. Yantra's geometric symbolic patterns have great spiritual significance. They are equivalent to the concrete personal expression of the unapproachable divine. Yantras operate in the visible sphere as mantras do in the audible. By means of yantras, devotees are able to participate ritually in the powers of the universe. The best known is the Sri Yantra, consisting of a number of interlocking triangles with a central point symbolizing the eternal. ഇപ്പൊ ടാൻട്രീസോ നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞത് മനസ്സിലായെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. ഇനി നമുക്ക് കോയിൻസ് ഓഫ് കുഷാന ഡൈനാസ്റ്റി നോക്കാം. കോയിൻസ് ഓഫ് കുഷാന ഡൈനാസ്റ്റി. All Kushana emperors used their coinage for the propaganda of their own superiority. The concept of showing the ruler on the coins was non-existent in India and all the previous dynasties minted coins showing only symbols. It was the Kushan rulers who popularized this idea, which remained in use for another 2000 years. The Kushan coinage was copied not only by later Indian dynasties like Guptas, but also by neighboring kings like Sassanids of Persia. Unfortunately, very few evidences of Kushan rule survive today. Indeed, Kushan coins are perhaps the best evidence we may have of this illustrious dynasty. Kushan coins tell a great deal about the image of the kings as they wished to be seen by their subjects. The portraits on Kushana gold copper coins of Bhima Kadphises are amazingly individualistic, often showing him as a full bearded, big-nosed, fierce-looking warrior chieftain, perhaps with a deformed skull, wearing high helmet, tunic, overcoat, and boots. The portrait of Kushana gold copper coins of Bhima Kadphises are amazingly individualistic, often showing him as a full bearded, big-nosed, fierce-looking warrior chieftain, perhaps with a deformed skull, wearing high helmet, tunic, overcoat, and boots. Coins of Kushana dynasty നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞത് മനസ്സിലാണെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. The Gupta dynasty, AD 320 to 550. The Gupta dynasty, AD 320 to 550. The Gupta dynasty is often remembered as the classical age. The Gupta dynasty is often remembered as the classical age. Under the Gupta rulers, most of North India was reunited. The Gupta Empire extended from the Brahmaputra to the Yamuna and Chambal, from the Himalayas to the Narmada. Because of the relative peace, law and order, and extensive cultural achievements during this period, it has been described as a golden age that crystallized the elements of what is generally known as Hindu culture, with all its variety, contradiction, and synthesis. The golden age was confined to the north, and the classical patterns began to spread south only after the Gupta Empire had vanished from the historical scene. The military exploits of the first three rulers, Chandragupta I, AD 320 to 335, Samudragupta, AD 335 to 376, and Chandragupta II, AD 376 to 415, brought all the North India under their leadership. From Padaniputra, their capital, they sought to retain political preeminence as much by pragmatism and judicious marriage alliances as by military strength. Despite their self-conferred titles, their overlordship was threatened, and by AD 500 ultimately ruined by the Huns, a branch of the White Huns emanating from Central Asia, who were yet another group in the long succession of ethnically and culturally different outsiders drawn into India and then woven into the hybrid Indian fabric. The Gupta dynasty, AD 320 to 550. The Gupta dynasty, AD 320 to 550. മനസ്സിലായെന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. സോറി, നമ്മുടെ ക്യാമറയുടെ ക്ലാരിറ്റി പോയി, ദയവേത് ക്ഷമിക്കുക. കുറെ നാളുകളായിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല, ക്യാമറ ക്ലാരിറ്റി ഇങ്ങനെ നഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്ന അവസ്ഥ. ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് ഇനിയിപ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെ വരുമോ നമുക്ക് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല. എന്തായാലും 1 മണിക്കൂറും ഏകദേശം അതിൽ കൂടുതലുള്ള വീഡിയോ ആണ് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്തേക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ വീഡിയോ എന്തായാലും ഇവിടെ വെച്ച് അവസാനിപ്പിക്കേണ്ട അവസ്ഥയാണ്. നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത വീഡിയോയിൽ ചെയ്യുന്ന ടോപ്പിക്സ് ആണ് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നത്. ഫീച്ചേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് ദ ഗുപ്ത ഡൈനാസ്റ്റി, ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻറ്റ് ഗുപ്ത റൂളേഴ്സ്, ചന്ദ്രഗുപ്ത I, AD 320 to 335, Samudragupta, AD 335 to 375, Art and architecture of Sunga and Andhra dynasties. Chandragupta II or Vikramaditya, AD 375 to 413. Fahian, AD 399 to 411. Origin of the Guptas. Table 1.4. 9 germs in the court of Chandragupta II. Later Guptas. Gupta administration. ഈ ടോപ്പിക്സുകളൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത വീട്ടിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുമെന്ന് പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. നമ്മുടെ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ സ്പെല്ലിംഗ് മിസ്റ്റേക്ക്, ക്ലാസ് മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്ത അവസ്ഥ, എന്തെങ്കിലും ഇതിലുള്ള തെറ്റുകളോ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുകളൊക്കെ സംഭവിച്ചു പോയിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ ആത്മാർത്ഥമായിട്ട് ക്ഷമ ചോദിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് സ്പെല്ലിംഗ് മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ദയവേത് ക്ഷമിക്കണം എന്നും കൂടി പ്രത്യേകം പറയണം. പിന്നെ ഈ വീഡിയോ നമ്മൾ എഡിറ്റ് ചെയ്യും, സോങ്സ് ഒക്കെ മിക്സ് ചെയ്ത് എഫക്ട്സ് ഒക്കെ യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് എഡിറ്റ് ചെയ്തതിന് ശേഷം എനിക്ക് യൂട്യൂബിൽ അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ കോൺസെൻട്രേഷന് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഇതിലുള്ള ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുകൾ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ദയവേത് ക്ഷമിക്കുക. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഈ ബുക്കിലെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യം എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ സിലബസ്, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മുടെ വീഡിയോട്ട് റിലേറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം ആഡ് ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ ബോക്സിൽ കൊടുക്കുക. അപ്പോൾ ദയവേത് ആഡ് ഡിസ്ക്രിപ്ഷൻ ബോക്സ് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കണം, ഒരിക്കലും മറക്കരുത്. പിന്നെ യൂട്യൂബിൽ നമ്മൾ ഒരുപാട് വീഡിയോസ് അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതിൽ എൻ്റെ ബർത്ത്ഡേ 24/8/2024 ആയിരുന്നു. അപ്പം ആ ഡേ നമുക്ക് വീഡിയോ അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ സാധിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. പക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ ബർത്ത്ഡേ ഡീറ്റെയിൽസ് ഒക്കെ ഉൾക്കൊള്ളിച്ചിട്ട് നമ്മളൊരു വീഡിയോ ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ആ വീഡിയോസൊക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ ദയവേത് വാച്ച് ചെയ്യണം. കുറെ വീഡിയോസ് നമ്മൾ എന്റർടൈൻമെന്റ് വീഡിയോ എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. പക്ഷെ ഒരു കാര്യം പറയാന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നമുക്കുള്ളതെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ ഈ ചെയ്തേക്കണ വീഡിയോനെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുമ്പോൾ കുറച്ച് ക്ലാരിറ്റി കുറവുണ്ട്. നമ്മൾ ചെയ്ത വീഡിയോ, ഈ ബർത്ത്ഡേ സ്പെഷ്യൽ വീഡിയോ ചെയ്തേക്കുന്നത് അവർക്കൊന്ന് ദയവേത് അഡ്ജസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യണം എന്നുള്ള പ്രത്യേകം പറയാണ്. അത് നമ്മൾ വ്യത്യസ്തമായിട്ടുള്ള വീഡിയോ എഡിറ്റർ യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ വീഡിയോസ് അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്തേക്കുന്നത് യൂട്യൂബിൽ. ഒരു വീഡിയോ എഡിറ്റർ വെച്ച് നമ്മൾ ചെയ്തത് ക്ലാരിറ്റിയിൽ കുറച്ച് കുറവ് വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ പ്രത്യേകം എടുത്ത് പറയുന്നത് ഒരുപാട് ഡിഫറൻസ് എന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ല, എന്നാലും നമുക്ക് പറയാണ്ടിരിക്കാനാവില്ല. കാരണം ക്ലാരിറ്റിക്ക് അത്രയും പ്രാധാന്യം ഉള്ളതുകൊണ്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ എടുത്ത് പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പം എന്തായാലും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മനസ്സിലായിട്ടുണ്ടാവും ഞാൻ വിചാരിക്കുന്നു. പിന്നെ എന്റർടൈൻമെന്റ് വീഡിയോ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് നമ്മൾ ഒരുപാട് വീഡിയോ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പം എല്ലാ വീഡിയോസും നിങ്ങൾ ദയവേത് വാച്ച് ചെയ്യാനുള്ളൊരു മനസ്സ് ഉണ്ടാവണം. അതാണ് നമ്മൾ പ്രത്യേകമായിട്ട് ഈ വീഡിയോയിൽ പറയാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നത്. ഇനിയും കുറച്ച് വീഡിയോസും കൂടെ നമുക്ക് അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്യാനുണ്ട് യൂട്യൂബിൽ. ഈ വീഡിയോ നമ്മൾ രാത്രി എടുത്തേക്കണം എന്നുള്ള പ്രത്യേകതയും കൂടി ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ CCTക്ക് വേണ്ടി നല്ല രീതിയിൽ വീഡിയോ ഉപകരിക്കുമെന്ന് ഞാൻ ആത്മാർത്ഥമായിട്ട് ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്നു, പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. നല്ലൊരു CCT എക്സാം എല്ലാവർക്കും ആശംസിക്കുന്നു. നല്ല വിജയകരമായിട്ടുള്ള CCT എക്സാം ഒക്കെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ നടക്കട്ടെ. എല്ലാവർക്കും ഹാവ് എ ഫാന്റാസ്റ്റിക് ഡേ ആൻഡ് ഹാവ് എ ബ്രൈറ്റ് ഫ്യൂച്ചർ. നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത വീഡിയോയിൽ കാണാം. ഗുഡ് നൈറ്റ് ആൻഡ് താങ്ക് യു സോ മച്ച്.